Good evening and welcome to this November 1st meeting of the Manhattan City Commission, legislative meeting. And we will start with the roll call. Brenda Wolf, the city clerk, will call the roll.
Mayor Morse.
Present.
Commissioner Hassel.
Here.
Commissioner Reddy.
Present.
Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Motta.
Here.
Mayor, we have 5 commissioners present. The quorum of 3 has been met.
We have a full house, thank you. And if you join me now in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item this evening is a proclamation, and we will, if you'll join me at the microphone, this is a proclamation for the Festival of Lights later in November, and it generates a lot of excitement. With us this evening is Brad Everett, Belinda Snyder, and Joey Ethan. So from Whoville, right? Yeah, from Whoville. I'll read the proclamation. Whereas the Manhattan Festival of Lights is a unique celebration of the holiday season, and this year is the 10th annual event. And whereas the Festival of Lights will take place at the Blue Earth Plaza with the opening ceremony at 7 p.m. on Friday, November 25th. You want to put that on your calendar? Friday, November 25th, 7 o'clock. For the big event. The Festival of Lights event is a collaboration of many businesses and local citizens with a love for their community and is funded through charitable donations and in-kind contributions. This is a magical time to enjoy the Wonderland of Lights choreographed to holiday classics, sip hot chocolate fireside with family and friends, and enjoy shopping and dining opportunities in our community. The lighting of the holiday tree can be enjoyed for all to see, for it was Whoville and the generous donors who made it all come to be. And this event came to change the Grinch and his small, selfish heart, and the Festival of Lights has grown with love, and that's just a start. And this event will provide more cheer for your family that can't be missed, and for more information, visit mhkfestivaloflights.com to stay off the naughty list. Now, therefore, I, Linda Morse, Mayor of the City of Manhattan, do hereby declare November 25th through January 1st as Festival of Lights event in the City of Manhattan, and encourage all citizens and community members throughout the region and the state of Kansas to enjoy the brilliant light displays and family fun activities. So we're delighted to do this again this year. Brad, if you'd like, whoever would like to speak.
Yeah, I'll just make a quick comment, and I'll curtsy down here a little bit, but
Take it out.
all right, I'll do that. Bink. Well, I want to thank the City Commission, first of all, and the city staff for their support, and 10 years has gone quick. Two ladies here to my right have really done a phenomenal job to keep the wheels on. It's been a lot of work. Of course, as many within the community know, the tree fell last year, and social media, gotta love it, but the tree is back. We've completely redone it, and it's gonna be safer. We got more anchors there than you can imagine, but with the tunnel, it's been redone. There's gonna be a present that's gonna be in the mid portion of it, so you can come in and do selfies, and the carnival, which is gonna be the following weekend, is actually gonna be stepped up a little bit too. So I think with both events, it really helps the community and the region to go ahead and start the holidays off on a positive note. So we do appreciate your support. Hope to see you all out that night on Black Friday. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. This is always the kickoff. Thanks. This is the first meeting of the month, and so we have general public comments at this meeting. Those wanting to make comments not related to any item on the agenda can do so at this time. Members of the public that signed up in person on the list at the podium before the meeting will go first, and we have two, Dennis Cook and Cam Ward, who will speak first. If you haven't already signed up, please be sure to sign in. Well, I'm not going to do the list now. Please state your name and residential address and/or the organization you're representing for the record and for those listening or watching this evening. Each speaker has 5 minutes, can speak only once, and must stop speaking when the timer sounds. Neither the commissioners nor the city staff will answer questions or debate an issue. We will take your comments under advisement. Commissioners should hold questions for clarification by the speaker until the end of their comments. A commissioner should just say that they want to speak. And so at this point, I'll open the public comment section of the meeting. If you'd like to, I'd like for Dennis Cook or Cam Ward to come up first.
I think Dennis.
I'm sorry, what'd I say?
Well, he signed up. He did, his comment is on the consent agenda.
He just signed up to get it done.
Oh, he just, all right. How
I'm not
about
sure if it was-
Mr. Ward, did you want to sign?
He's consent.
It's consent agenda also. So this is general public comment, I'm sorry.
General Gary.
Does it say that? No. Okay.
Good evening, commissioners, staff, and those in attendance. My name is Gary Oles. I live at 3308 Frontier Circle. I'm a familiar face here. Is the clock running for me? Okay. I don't see it. You'll let me know.
It's not.
All right, I'll try to pace my comments then. I have two issues that I want to visit with you all this evening about. The first has to do with actually this public comment time. It's my understanding that several years ago, this commission went to the decision where citizens speak on general non-agenda topics only on the first of the month, eliminating 12 other times for a citizen to speak. I believe that's fundamentally wrong, and it needs to be looked at next year. And the reason is you are elected, you are the voice of the people. And the people should have a right to stand up here more than 12 times a year and address issues. I put that before you again and ask that you would consider it as you talk among yourselves for future agenda items, perhaps next year, because this year is waning by quickly. How much time do I have left? Oh, thank you. There it is. The second issue that I want to talk about, even though it's on the agenda, it's not about that agenda item. It is about the RCPD Law Board, as probably no one is surprised that I'm back to discuss it. First off, I want to thank you for the joint or interlocal meeting that you had, whatever it is, where the elected
Joint
officials
meeting, yeah.
get together and discuss, and evidently it was brought up by one of the commissioners. I don't know which one, it doesn't matter. But I appreciate, and I'm sure that many citizens appreciate, at least there's a dialogue between the two elected boards so that you can kind of sort this thing out. Ironically or providentially, the son of the author of this legislation that created the law board was here this evening, Don Everett, many years ago. And I'm not casting any aspersions on the wisdom of the Riley County Consolidated Law Enforcement. I think it's probably a really good idea, and it seems to have worked very well for several decades. But I am interested in making one comment. For those of you who are history buffs, which hopefully some of you are, today's a significant day. November 1st, 1765. Do you know what happened this day in 1765? The Stamp Act was enacted by the British Parliament upon the colonists here in the 13 colonies of the new America. They didn't like it one bit. Why didn't they like it? Well, you'd have to read all the details on Wikipedia to fully understand, but The bottom line is, as we all know from our American history class, no taxation without representation. That was the thorn in the flesh, so to speak, of the colonist. And here before you I am with a thorn in the flesh. And I'm just one citizen, and I'm sure there are many others that feel the same way, and probably others that don't. But you are the voice of the people, and you're here by the graces of the people through the election process in our representative republic to represent not what you think, but what the citizens think. Some will be in favor of the way it is, others not. I realize that the statute says citizen. It doesn't say elected official. But just as you have the ear of the elected officials that represent us at the state, and whether it's Senator Hawk or the representatives, Dobson and
Carlin.
Sydney, I was thinking Sydney. They listen to you and they put forth legislation that you believe is in the best interest of the city, in the best interest of the citizens, and that's the way it should be, a representative republic. In this case, with this law board, I don't have any qualms with issues of policy being discussed. But when it comes to taxation, which your hands are tied, as I understand it, and the county commission's hands are tied, and as I recall, Jason told me like 25 mil or 28 mil or whatever significant mil it was, comes out of the city budget as 80% of the Riley County Police Department. This topic needs to be put under a microscope. It really does. And no better time to do that now that we have a new director coming on board shortly. So I would encourage you, as I will the county commission, to continue to discuss it, to sort it out, and truly look at it from the standpoint of, is it just and is it right that non-elected officials have the power to levy a tax? Because it should be made up of elected officials, whether it's the county commission and you all as city commissioners, or a separate board that the citizens of Riley County elect. But that's the key as we commemorate the Stamp Act of 1765, which, by the way, got repealed real quick and led to the American Revolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olds. Thank you. Please come forward.
I'll go next.
Okay.
Unfortunately, my slides didn't get in time. It wasn't clear how to get them to you. I heard they were printed. Yes, thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So good evening. My name is Mark Franzen, 1108 Lesmer Court. Full disclosure, I own an electric vehicle, new owner as of this year. And I feel a bit like I'm on the bow of the Titanic looking at, an iceberg in the water. So full disclosure though, I'm not here in my own self-interest tonight. I have a good charging situation. I'm good. What I'm here to discuss is what I see as an upcoming issue with people who come here with EVs, need to charge, and there is a lack of charging infrastructure. There appears to be a lack of charging policies, procedures, codes, things like that. What I'm here to avert is the risk that people are going to plug in their cars, drag an under voltage electric cord across a public sidewalk out to the curb, charge their car, and create a safety hazard. Electric vehicles draw a lot of current. There's a lot of rules and policies that go into the electrical infrastructure to support them. And I currently see a lack of city guidance on those matters. But it is true that electric vehicles are coming. GM has committed to 100% electric vehicle production by 2025. Ford is 40% by, I think, 2030. Every other manufacturer is committed to electric vehicles. So they're going to show up. Students are going to have to plug in and charge. People in multi-tenant dwellings are going to have to plug in and charge. What are the codes on that? Is there a ratio of chargers that we're going to put in for high-density living situations? Is it 2 chargers for every 100 tenants in an apartment complex? What is it? I don't know. Have we thought about that? So addition to that, there's a lot of federal funding out there right now. I don't know how to access it. I'm a former federal employee. I was a recipient of lots of federal funding. But how to tap into it, how to write for it, how to get access to those hundreds of billions of dollars in funding that are currently available, I don't know, but they're out there. The state of Kansas has a program. It's linked in those slides that I provided you. Just recently, the state of Kansas, or I'm sorry, the EPA awarded the state of Kansas 6 different school districts over, I think it was $6.6 million for electric buses and infrastructure. In addition to that, there's a lot of other funding coming into the state. I think on the website, it was on order of $5.8 million for this year, $8.4 million for next year, and in the next 5 years, $39.5 million estimated to be given to the state of Kansas to address this issue. Looking ahead, my concern again is that people can charge safely and charge in a lot of different areas. Areas for consideration, if you visit Kansas City, you may notice major shopping areas have what are called level 2 chargers. Level 2 chargers add approximately 20 to 40 miles an hour of charge to most electric vehicles. But if somebody, needs to charge their car to 200 miles, it doesn't seem reasonable for them to plug in for 5 hours in a public parking space at a shopping center. That is why Manhattan also needs to consider high-speed chargers. Right now, the only high-speed charging infrastructure is either in Topeka or Salina. Manhattan is not a waypoint for electric vehicles to come here and charge quickly. The high-speed chargers will charge a car up 150 to 200 miles in approximately 15 to 20 minutes. That's average for most vehicles. So if you think about that, if someone's coming off of or leaving Topeka and then coming off exit 313 to Manhattan, they have to park and plug and charge here for a couple of hours, or at least an hour, to make up that range to get back out on I-70 and get to Salina if they're heading west. So Manhattan needs to look at where to place that high-speed charging infrastructure. It's expensive. Those high-speed chargers require special transformers and heavy cable infrastructure. There's chargers. There are chargers at the Discovery Center, but I drove around on Friday, and there are only 9 available level 2 chargers in all of Manhattan. There are no level 3 high-speed chargers in Manhattan, which will limit people's visiting Manhattan to charge their vehicles. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mark, stay there for a second.
Okay.
Are those vehicles chargeable on 110 current, or do they have to have a 220? Is it possible for people trying to run a regular extension cord?
You can, but the considerations are that, one, it adds about 3 to 5 miles of range on average per hour, charging on a regular 20 amp, 120 volt outlet. Other considerations are, is the cord, thick enough, heavy gauge enough to withstand the heat and the distance that they may be dragging that cord.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Please. Please do.
So this is very intriguing. I was wondering if you have any idea if gas stations are looking at changing over to charging stations?
So I have not seen that in any of my research. A lot of the charging infrastructure that I see, well, let me back up. So on the turnpike, right, there's high-speed chargers on both sides of the turnpike in Topeka and Lawrence now. But what I see in a lot of municipalities is they place the chargers where people are going to dwell for a period of time, next to restaurants, next to shopping centers. Those are typically going to be your level 2 chargers. In Kansas City, the bulk of the high-speed chargers are at Hy-Vees. I don't know what that deal is, but that's where they appear to be. So I would say don't align them necessarily with gas stations. I would put them where people are going to park and have enough time to enjoy themselves for 20 minutes to an hour or more. That's what I see as common.
I think we don't know much about that, and we might just need to call on you to ask you or others in the community who have knowledge to help us understand it better. So
All right.
appreciate you coming this evening.
Thank you.
Very helpful. Okay. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to the commission this evening under public comments about something not on the agenda? Okay, seeing no one, we will continue with the next topic, which is commissioner comments.
Just vote. You have until November 8th. I think the Riley County office, I don't know about Pot County or other areas, but here they're open, I believe, from 8 in the morning till 7 in the evening this week, and also on Saturday till noon, and I believe Monday till noon, and then 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I highly recommend you review your sample ballot on the Riley County Elections website. There's lots of questions or lots of candidates that you might want to think about how you want to vote for, but don't go in too surprised, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So go vote. Thank you.
No? Yusha's correct. There are a lot of, I voted this morning. There are a lot of X's or to make in the ballot. And if you go in prepared, it goes a lot faster. I'm the chair of the Riley County Law Board, and we announced Friday that the selection of a new chief of police for the Riley County Police Department. His name is Brian Pete from Vermont, and we're just beginning to work out the details of his appointment, but we wanted to make the announcement to let people know that we've made that decision, and we're going to be working on start date and the typical kinds of things you work with someone on for their employment. So we're pleased with the selection, and hope you are too. Let's see, is there any other announcement? Okay. We'll move on to the next agenda, which is the consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda are those of a routine and housekeeping nature, or those items which have previously been reviewed by the City Commission. A commissioner may request an item be moved for separate discussion and consideration immediately following the consent agenda, or at a different point on the agenda if desired by the City Commission. Does the commission have any questions or comments on any of the consent agenda items?
I move that we move item E3 to the general agenda.
Okay, E3 is the approving an ordinance, a second reading and a final of an ordinance amending Chapter 31 of the Code of Ordinances, establishing regulations, parking fees, and penalties for violations of parking within Aggieville parking garage, and establishing the parking services manager's authority. And then there's a resolution setting the Aggieville fees for the Aggieville parking garage. So item E3 will be moved to the end of the. What'd you
It'll
say?
be the beginning of the general agenda.
The beginning of the general agenda.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, does that need to be voted on, or is it?
Do we vote on that specific?
I think you just ask that it happen,
All right.
and we do it. I mean, yes. Any other comments or thoughts? Okay. Is there, so you have made a motion except for
Well,
that one?
Yeah, that wasn't a motion, I just
That
requested
was
it.
requested it, okay.
And
So,
so it shall be done.
yes, so now we need a motion and a second. I know that's
Yeah.
true.
So just
I agree.
public comment on the rest of the agenda.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. We are ready now. If you are here this evening to speak on any of the items on the consent agenda, this is the public comment time for those items. Except for
Aggieville parking garage.
E3 Aggieville parking. Is anyone here to speak? Okay, hi.
Hi. All right. Hello, my name is Faith Kramer, and I live on 1408 University Drive here in Manhattan, Kansas. I'm an undergrad student at K-State and studying psychology. And if all goes well, hopefully I'll be a part of their graduate program and studying master in psychology. On campus, I help with Cause Ambassadors, which encourages young women to join STEM majors in college. I came to K-State because the town felt like a holiday within the folds of my childhood memory. It is the place where my parents met. It's the place of many home football victory games I remember cheering at. It's a place that feels like home away from home. As a child, it was a dream. Currently, as a student who lives in Manhattan for 3 years now, I've come to 2 ideals I think are worth mentioning. First is the parking here, of which is an issue I can spend more than 5 minutes talking about, which I do not have time for. The second is the living conditions you've set up here in Manhattan City. This is why I'm here speaking today. I speak with my leadership class. I speak for the majority of college students who rent apartments, dorm rooms, houses, paying the necessity to stay, because none of us have the credit nor financial ability to put a down payment on a house. I speak for Greek housing that have not been mentioned or thought of through the drafting of the house market analysis. And I speak for myself. As a class, we attended your meeting Tuesday, October 18th, 2022, and I heard a point I think deserves some elaboration. My voice matters just as much as yours. In the draft of the housing market analysis, 18 to 24-year-olds make 31% of your population, which can be assumed the majority is college students. In the section of affordability, there's a notable shift when college students are in your city compared to the cities that do not have college students. To afford a place here in Manhattan, it's expensive, given that most students work minimal age or none at all, having to rely on their parents for help. There are some apartments that have extremely high rent and in unlivable conditions, either from not being maintained or just being very old, causing a lot of issues for the high-rated price. This adds more stress to the already existing stresses of academics and education. However, the higher income gets, the more affordable stays consistent with the middle and upper class. I understand this may be your main focus because it's the majority of your population who stays consistent, which is shown in the draft. There are more permanent than college students who is only here for fall and spring semesters, mostly. Yet we still live in your city. We pay your bills and utilities just like any other residents in Manhattan. Just because we are temporary residents does not make our living situation any less valuable. In your last meeting, when the topic of college students came up, you decided that we were not educated enough, we were not passionate enough, and we were not able enough to participate in the steering committee. And here I am speaking to you that this matters. I speak for my class to say we care. I support the idea of having a college student on the steering committee to speak for the 31% of your population, of which, in that population, 57% are renters, which I can also assume holds the majority of college students. At best, having 2 students who will stay until after graduation or who are present during the entire process, who can add a great representation towards college students that live in Manhattan, or at least include an open communication between the steering committee and the college housing department at K-State and any other colleges in the city. Even allocating money to make a feedback system to make homeowners and landowners more aware of the issues at present. To reiterate, I understand your main focus is middle-class living standards, which I agree is very important to address. However, if your main focus is middle class, what about everyone else? The lower class is just as important, so are college students who also fit in between the middle and lower class, who come to Manhattan because the atmosphere is welcome and homey, because the desire of education that colleges in Manhattan offer. We come because of personal meaning that pushes us to stay, yet an issue that drives us away from feeling comfortable, away from choosing to seek education, and from staying away is the major factor of housing standards. Since the universities in Manhattan are the main attraction to people to come to Manhattan, I think it's just as important to include the voices of college students in your steering committee to represent a collection of people of students. Kansas is a great place to settle down and grow old. Manhattan is a beautiful city to stay in. But if I have a terrible experience with the living conditions, what's convincing me to stay? Thank you.
Thank you, Faith. Does anyone else wish to speak this evening on the consent agenda during the public comment section? Okay. Seeing no one, I'll close the public comment section for the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda except for item E3, which is on the general agenda now.
I second. I would like to make a comment.
Yes, please.
Okay. So Faith, I really appreciate your comments. I did see your email. I thought I responded, but I must not have. I do apologize for that. I think there is some merit to having a K-State student, whether undergraduate or graduate student, on there. Someone who can, I know it's a transient population, I get it, but at the same time, they do make up quite a bit of our population. And if we would like for them to also find a job here and stay here, I think it would be a good idea to have their voice at the table on the Housing Steering Committee. And that's something I pointed out during our previous commission meeting, and that's something I would still advocate for on this consent agenda item as well.
Yeah, I'll just comment on that. I just want to be sure that comprehensive housing market analysis is separate than the Workforce Housing Steering Committee. It's two different things. And we tend to be merging those, and that's my only concern. And I think it'd be great to have a student on there, but I'd be more selective. It'd be nice to have a student that is getting ready to graduate that actually intends to stay in Manhattan and take a job here. That'd be a good perspective. But the workforce housing money that's set aside on economic development is not designed to improve student housing. It's designed for workforce, and we made that clear when the voters voted on that a couple of years ago.
True. I think there is a mesh when we're talking about college students, which are potential workforce housing people. We have the developers and realtors and everybody else that look at it from a different perspective, as opposed to an individual actually living in a housing, in shelter of some kind in the city of Manhattan. We talked about revitalizing neighborhoods. We don't know where all the students are living, and we know there's plentiful apartments, but they're also being short-term rentals now, converted to short-term rentals. So I think I don't think one voice or a voice from Kansas State University would tip the scale to take it away from the ultimate goal. It might add to the discussion even more.
Are there other comments? I tend to agree with Yusha. I am an advocate for having a student on one or two, whatever, on the steering committee. I think that their voice is important, and we have turned a deaf ear to housing inspections in this community. The majority has, and so I think it's important that at a minimum, some student voices could be a part of the deliberations of a committee. Okay. We now have a motion and a second, so unless there's additional comment, I would ask that the city clerk call the roll.
Commissioner Hassel,
Yes?
Commissioner Reddy,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Mayor Morse.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And let's see what's happening next year. Consent agenda has finished. We're ready for the general agenda, and the first item on the general agenda will be this item, which was E3, to approve ordinance number 7651, amending chapter 31 of the Code of Ordinances, establishing regulations, parking fees, and penalties for violations of parking within the Aggieville parking garage, and establishing the Parking Services Manager's Authority. So at this point, the city is not making a presentation. Mark, you will be making your case.
Making a case, get back here. We had asked for some information, which we received, but I don't know if the general public got that information. So is the parking lady here?
Adrian's here.
There she is, okay. Why don't you come on up here, please? There we go. So we talked about, okay, instead of going 1 hour free, if we went 2 hours free or 3 hours free, what financial impact would that have on the pro forma cash flow analysis that you'd provided us? Go.
Okay, so for every hour of free parking that you offer, you lose approximately $53,656 in revenue annually. To put that into perspective in terms of our operating costs, you're looking at about $25,000 to $28,000 a year to power wash the garage one time. Proper maintenance on parking garages dictate you do it twice a year, especially in climates where it snows and you have to remove salt left over from vehicles. So those costs are about $56,000 a year. The estimated cost of electricity, not gas or any other services, but electricity alone, is going to be about $66,000 a year. Cleaning, scrubbing, general maintenance, including labor, is roughly about $75,000 a year. These estimates do not include costs associated with weather, such as snow and ice removal, which, depending on the snow event, can run up to $10,000 per event. Summer storm damage to exterior windows and signage, repair work due to vandalism, or any other unforeseen expense associated with maintenance of the garage. Prime example of an unforeseen expense is we were told that a business near us, not in Aggieville, was shut down temporarily this weekend due to a roach infestation. So I have pest control coming out to do an analysis on the garage, make sure they didn't migrate to the garage, and to have the garage sprayed. So that's going to be at least another couple $1,000s. That's a prime example of unexpected cost. In addition, by losing a minimum of $53,000 a year, we are unable to purchase the necessary equipment to do a lot of the maintenance and upkeep of the garage on our own, and forces us to be put into a position to have to continually contract these services out.
Okay. That's what we all wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Anything else?
Let's throw it open for public comment.
Okay, we have this item on the agenda as a single item now. Is there comment from the public? I'll open the public comment portion. And two people have signed up ahead of time. Cameron Ward? Yes?
Good evening, Cam Ward, 1202 Morrow Street. I'm an Aggieville business owner and property owner. I think all of us in Aggieville are thrilled to see the garage open, to see folks parking there, and it has been a nice bonus that that's been free of charge for the remainder of this year. I was concerned about the 1 hour of free parking. I think what we have to look at is what sales tax dollars come into the district to be spent or earned at our businesses. I think we have to look at equity with available parking in the district, which currently we have 3 hour parking free on the street. 1 hour of free parking in that garage is going to keep those transient parkers out of there. We are not going to see that garage full of those hourly parkers if you can park on the street for free. When the Midtown project starts here, hopefully next month, we're losing more street parking. I sit in my window at my business at 1202 Morrow every day, and I see a lot of cars drive by. I know anecdotally that a lot of those cars that drive by are folks that are looking for parking so they can go get their coffee, get their hair cut, get a drink at a bar, get lunch or dinner, or enjoy the variety of other businesses we have down there. And so my concern is that if 1 hour free parking in the garage forces everyone to park on the streets to get their longer free parking, we're not going to see anyone in that garage. And so these numbers we're talking about the economic impact to Manhattan annually by giving another hour or two of free parking, I don't think those are unreasonable numbers to think about. But if we don't get the parkers in the garage anyway, we're never going to see that income as a city. I don't do sales tax analysis. I don't know how much sales tax Aggieville businesses raise per year. But I do know that if we have more folks that are driving by and choose to go somewhere else that they can park for free to eat lunch, to get their drink, to get their haircut, to get their coffee, we're going to see a detriment to our district when we have already gone through quite a bit to see the city improve and grow. We have a business in Aggieville this week that closed, and construction in front of their property where you can't get to it certainly could have been a factor to that. I don't want to see the construction that we're willing to deal with be any more of a detriment to the district. And 1 hour of free parking, it's going to keep that garage empty. It's not going to fit the needs that it was built to meet. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to this issue?
Good evening, I'm Dennis Cook, 1125 Morrow. I am the director for Aggieville. I had sent you all a statement, really from the Aggieville Business Association. At our recent board meeting, our board unanimously voted to oppose the proposed fee structure. And then we also want to talk about the special event status. But on the fee structure, we've met many times with the city staff. We've met many times with Adrian Tucker, the parking services manager, and generally we feel that most of these proposed fees and hours are acceptable. We are just concerned about this 1 hour free versus 3 hour free on the street. And and I know we're not trying to argue to change something on the street. What we're concerned about is, as Cam just said, that here in the next month or so, we're going to lose another 100 spaces of public parking. There at 12th in Laramie, and and there's in a vacuum you can assume that those people go to the garage, but there's also and we're trying to figure out what that money is, and I know Adrian worked hard to give you that information, but that's information that's we don't know that. We've never dealt in that world yet. And a lot of the businesses in Aggieville compete directly with businesses elsewhere in the city. And we're not looking to have our customer base say, okay, well, for most of the things that you want to do in Aggieville, whether it's eat, shop, go to a service, get a haircut, whatever, everything takes an hour is probably not as likely as you would think. It's usually more than an hour, and whether they want to go in and get hit for that versus being on the street, we're worried that they're going to just take off and go find that service someplace else. So that is our concern about the parking. We'd like to see the parking garage free period extended, and the other part is we don't really have a definition of what that special event is. What we'd hate to see is that at some point, like we have last weekend, you've got trick or treat in Aggieville and you have the homecoming parade, special event. It's $15 to park or whatever that number is. I think what I've heard is that's not really the special event we're talking about. But I would like to, at least have a better feel for what you might think that special event is, if that's not what it is. And I'm assuming it's something that it's some event we haven't had yet. And hopefully we will have in the future. But I just want to make sure that we're not talking about something that we're already doing, because I don't see it yet. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering if we can have a little more explanation of the special event.
Sure. So we haven't fully defined it ourselves, but it was something that as we've visited with other cities that have had these types of events, I would say that most of those have larger venues that accommodate large crowds for a period of time, and Lincoln, Nebraska would be in the Haymaker area where they have the basketball coliseum and multiple parking garages that support that effort. So it's thinking about that type of thing where you have a large event that is well publicized, that you might adjust the rate for, because you're probably going to have to bring on some additional staff potentially.
Okay, so you're
for
saying,
that event.
I'm just trying to get straight in my mind is that, because you mentioned bringing on more staff, which makes me think, okay, you want to charge a higher price. Because you could look at it two ways. I'm having a special event, the hourly fee may become too much for people to come to the event, so I'm going to make it a little cheaper. Or what you're saying is, I'm going to need more staff, so I'm going to make that rate even higher. So I guess, are we thinking it's going to make you pay more or make you pay less?
I think it could be either, but that scenario I described and what we've seen in other cities is that they have this capture group that they know are coming because somebody sold tickets for this large event happening. You've shut down Morrow Street for this big band that's playing and have this huge crowd, and as opposed to a more public event, whether it's the holiday parade or trick or treat parade or something like that, it might be something that we lower the fee on. So I mean, it's just, that's the kind of
Okay,
question,
no,
and
that
it's
was, that's,
difficult to define.
that was helpful. Yes.
I also wanted to add that my main goal in establishing an event rate for Aggieville was so that when we do start charging for parking, we prevent people from receiving citations at the end of the event. So the idea being that if we have an event where we know it runs maybe 3 or 4 hours, people are going to pay for, on average, 3 hours worth of parking. If they stay over, we don't want them going back to their vehicle and receiving a citation. That's the last thing we want for our events in Aggieville, because it leaves a poor taste in everybody's mouth. By charging a flat rate, the rate's good all day long. They pay once, they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to worry about their time running out, getting back to their car to add more time, or getting that citation. That's the main reason for having an event rate. And also giving me the authority to adjust those rates prevents me from coming here each and every single time I want to change that rate, right? So just as Ron said, there are some events we may not want to charge for parking. There are some events where we want to offer deeply discounted parking, like the Halloween parade. The garage almost filled up during the parade, or during trick-or-treating and for the parade. So next year, and they stayed on average about 4 hours, so maybe we drop the rate a little bit to encourage people to continue to park there versus charging them a full rate and then possibly them getting a citation at the end of it.
So you're not thinking Aggieville doesn't have anything, whether it's Little Apple Ball Drop or any of the parades and stuff, where you would feel like we'd want to charge more, right?
Not at this moment, no. I don't see a need for it, and especially, again, talking about reducing the rate, especially for student groups that are holding events. We want to do we can afford to do that, I think. And we want to do what's best for the community with those rates.
Yeah, and even then, it's $2 an hour.
Yeah.
So even if it's 3 or 4 hours, it would be like $10, unless they stay all day or whatever it might be, then you might have it less than.
Right. And then maybe we want to encourage them to stay in Aggieville all day, so we do a flat rate of $5 or $6 for the event, and they stay past the event and have dinner or drinks with their friends. They're staying in Aggieville and they're still spending money.
I think defining it more and then having that pilot year would be very helpful, or the pilot 6 months, to see what game days look like, what special events look like, what summer events look like, what Fake Patty's Day looks like.
Right.
I don't know, and what employee rates look like, and what does a full year pass, all of this. We need that type of data to make
Absolutely.
future decisions. But I think the questions that are being asked are very relevant and important as they make their budget decisions for their businesses.
Absolutely, and just as Linda suggested last time we met, and as I said, I'm a data-driven person. That's how I make my decisions, and I'm more than happy to, throughout the year, to come and report back what the numbers look like, occupancy, revenue, whatever you need.
Yeah. And I also wanted to say, they said, I see cars going around all the time trying to find that hourly parking. Right now, the garage is free. So I think our initial instinct is to get as close to the door as possible of that business that we're going to. So even though the garage is free right now, yeah, people are still driving around they might spend 15 minutes just to walk 2 feet to wherever the nearest, Blue Stem, let's say, to get into it. Whereas the garage is free, there's spaces available instead of just putting it there and going, but being, somewhat, quote unquote, inconvenient to walk those few feet. But I think that might change people's habits, but I don't even think people know 3 hours right now is free, or 1 hour is free, or whatever it is, because the garage is free 24/7 right now. They should automatically park there, but that habit has not changed yet.
But the street parking is going to be charged also, right?
No.
Okay.
No, it's 3 hours on street parking.
So beginning January 1st, we're going to charge for the garage and not for the streets?
Correct.
Okay.
Mayor, that was part of the compromise. When we sat down with Aggieville 2-3 years ago, this is even before Adrian came on,
Okay.
and we had 3 or 4 presentations from Walker for you all on the garage and the structure. We anticipated going to the street and in the garage at the same time, having an hour free, and that was even debatable.
Yeah.
We started there for 30 minutes, if you recall Walker's recommendation, and then the 2 hour got thrown around, and we ended up settling on the hour. The on-street parking was part of the compromise we were willing to make during construction. But even at that time, Aggieville agreed, move forward with the garage and the rate structure that you had proposed. A big part of why I think it's important for us to move forward today with the garage is those 450 stalls are about the equivalent of where we started with Aggieville. When Walker started studying Aggieville, they contend there were about 500 stalls available on street and surface lots. There were about 550 to 560, but they actually eliminated about 50 to 60 of them due to inconvenience, and I think even the handicap parks were eliminated from that analysis. So we're about 437, I believe, is what Adrian told me. We have stalls that are actually available to the general public in the parking garage. At the same time, the district has been putting a lot of pressure on the next garage with TJ in Midtown. We need experience in this garage as if it's operating like it always will in order for us to make evaluations and determinations and conversations next summer. Because if TJ is going to open up Midtown and Chin property is going to finish, pressure on that garage is going to grow immensely. We need a good baseline to make decisions on whether or not we're even involved in the next parking garage. Without it, I think it'd be very difficult to approach you all for investing in future parking in Aggieville. We need good data. We need to know who is parking in our garage, what kind of revenue we're generating. We have hired people, we have bought vehicles, we have paid for equipment, we have invested in technology, and we're prepared to go. A few months ago, Aggieville was fully aware that's where we were headed with the garage, and we acquiesced on the 3 hours in the street. But we're ready to implement this January 1, and there's a long history to it, and it involves time well beyond when Adrian was brought on board. We've talked about this at length, and we've made the investment, not only in the building, but everything else, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're teed up and ready to go here in January. They have a $500,000 budget, and we're trying to generate that much revenue to pay for those people and maintain that equipment and maintain that facility. We also need the experience so we can come back next summer and talk to you all about where do you want to go with future parking needs. They're going to be there.
Now, when you said you acquiesced on the 3 hours, there was the original idea not to do the 3 hours on the street?
Original idea was 1 hour free on the street, and you paid to park after, just like you are in the garage.
In the
Correct.
garage, yeah.
Yep.
And then, I'm trying to think when those original discussions started, was TJ's project out there? Because I think that's one of their things now with that project there. It's complicated a lot of things for them.
When we started the study in 16, you can look at the video. It covered up every single parking lot we had with buildings. The vision anticipated.
So behind Kites, that was gone from the parking?
Yep, it had structure on it. There were 3 garages in that vision. So we anticipate, I mean, the question and the conversation's coming.
Oh, right.
And-
So you
and-
may have had that with 3 garages, but from their point of view, they might not have thought when the first garage got built that they would necessarily be missing that parking in that garage.
A lot of it was about analysis of just how many new stalls there needs to be to match the growth in the district.
Right, I'm
there's
not
a-
arguing that. I'm
Yeah.
just saying from their perception, from what they were seeing they would have when the garage opened, they were probably thinking they had that lot still.
No, I mean, it was part of the conversation. They were very well aware of where we were
Well,
headed.
down the
with
road,
lot.
when you had 3 garages.
The RFP was put out 18, 19, in terms of trying to get that set up for that parking lot to be constructed upon. So, I mean, the knowledge was there. I mean, we just talked about on-street and then parking 12, 15 months ago. I mean, it was absolutely an opportunity, and it was being talked about in terms of that lot being developed.
Jason, you mentioned that you went to the 1 hour free because of the construction. We're going to be in a construction mode for a good long time.
We went to 3 hours,
Right.
Commissioner. Mayor, we went to 3 hours on street as an alternative to 1 hour and
1 hour.
charging for parking on the streets, which is what the LPR, license plate recognition, and all our software is really teed up to do.
Okay.
So it was a compromise.
I just was.
And we
trying-
recognize the construction is going to be going on for
So,
several years.
Yeah, how long, when do you see the end of construction, I guess, was what I really was trying to ask you.
I think we're into 27 and 28.
Okay.
I mean, we don't want to shut down multiple streets at a
No,
time.
I agree. I
Yeah,
just
and,
wanted
you
to
know-
know how long, if we're going to see construction for the next couple of years.
Easy,
Yeah.
because we're not going to finish 12th and Laramie and open Midtown until 26.
And we're trying to do it in small bits so that we don't
25.
disrupt businesses any more than we have to. I appreciate that approach, too. Okay.
Jason, when you say Chen's, tell me a little bit more about how many people we're talking about our parking stalls as far as Chen's establishment.
Yeah, when he came through his zoning, he had 3 levels. So he had a ground floor, commercial, second floor, commercial office, and then a third floor for residential. I believe that's still the case. I don't know if anybody from CD's here, but I believe that's what he's up to. I think it's second, third residential. Yeah, there were a couple of different alternatives for how much residential he'd actually have and how much office.
Was that an apartment complex? I don't even remember what was there.
3 houses.
Oh, it was 3 houses. So when you say residential on the 2 floors, do you know how many parking, like we typically have, like you need this many parking spaces or whatever, but they don't need any parking spaces, so they might end up parking in the garage.
They will absolutely. They
So-
waited for our garage to get done before
Are
they
we
could
talking
start.
about 50 people, 100 people?
No, I don't think you're talking about that, but it brings up the point I'm trying to make, Yusha. We need experience in our garage of who's willing to pay. There've been a lot of businesses and a lot of residential approach Adrian about securing lots, parking stalls.
Right.
And we need to have that data, and we need a good 6 months of that data before we start talking about future developments and future garages and the city's participation, in my opinion. And in order to do that, we need to set up the structure. I would prefer we be an hour free everywhere and license plate recognition the entire district with paid parking. That was the plan. And that gets us to where we can manage what's going on in front of these businesses. Going to 3 hour, you're going to have employees and patrons right out in front of those businesses again, like they have been for years. This time, they won't be able to look for the chalk on their tire. That's going to be an electronic chalk, and they won't know when they started and when they're coming. So it's going to be a little bit more efficient, but 3 hours is still going to be available. And at 2 hours and 45 minutes, you go hop in your vehicle and you move it a few stalls, you get another 3 hours. So that game's going to continue. And what we're attempting to do here is get people into the garage, $1 a day for a part-time employee in Aggieville. They work 20 days, it's $1 a day. That's what we're asking. But there's a lot of other user groups that want to be in that garage, and we'll pay for it.
I want to be sure that we make the budget, the 500,000 a year, that, I'd hoped that we would be able to contribute to the construction costs and the bonds, but looks like we're, pardon?
Downtown and other places, we have free parking for how long? 2 hours?
Yeah, downtown's regulated at about 2 hours. 3 hours really in Aggieville. They've pushed that in the last few years just to allow more time.
Yeah, and I understand the issue with the construction, but, I'm thinking consistency. To me, it would make sense to just say 2 hours free everywhere. Have a nice day. That takes care of it. And if you park longer than 2 hours, you're gonna get a ticket. And that's a compromise. I mean, it makes it equal. That'll push people in the garage. It will hurt maybe our garage budget a little bit. But I'm thinking that's the way to go. Then it equals what DMI is doing and everybody else. Just go with it that way.
Can I add, what do you mean by 2 hours everywhere, Commissioner?
Free 2 hours in the garage, free 2 hours on the street.
Are you charging after 2 hours in the garage?
Yes.
2 hours.
So you're giving them another hour.
Yes.
Are you gonna,
And then if
you're
you're on
going
the
to
street
2 hours,
past 2 hours, you're gonna get charged even more when you get a nice fat ticket.
but it's 2 hours on the street instead of 3.
Yes.
But don't the people on the street have the option of paying for parking after 3 hours or not?
They can move their car, a stall, and
We're not-
park for
we're
3
not
more
putting-
hours.
We're not setting up the on-street parking with the pay. You have to leave.
No, you'd have to move
You
it.
have to move. Okay, so there's no opportunity to park on the street and pay.
Not right now.
But
That was a compromise. We can set that up.
but
We can go to
isn't it
2
also-
hour everywhere and charge after that.
But my understanding on those readers, though, is that if you just move your car a couple stalls, we can still give you a ticket.
No, we looked into that technology. We also looked into how difficult that'll be down at municipal court, carrying out fines and tickets with that technology not being as sophisticated as we'd like it to be. You would have to actually track a vehicle in that district for the period of time they're there. So hypothetically, they come in for their 15-minute donut run in the morning. They come back in the afternoon. The system's going to it's not going to be able to tell how long they've been there. They're just going to know they've been there. So you can't yes, the license plate recognition is going to go around and track vehicles, but it's not going to geofence it in a way that you only get so many hours in the district and then you get a ticket. The signage on that is also going to be very difficult to do. So we're better off establishing what we want to be in terms of the first time getting free, but then you're charging after that. It was my impression the district wanted that 3 hour on street to still accommodate their patrons for a lengthier period of time. Aggieville's went to almost all 3 hour in the last 2 years, so I knew that was their preference, and they voiced it again. I'm not sure if they'd be interested in 2 hour and then paying after that, but we could sure set it up that way. But that wasn't the
we can
feedback
ask
I
them.
got.
Obviously, we can't ask the whole board, but we can ask who's here. And also, I think if you have to move your car every 2 hours, man, that'd be a lot of hassle.
They do it all the time, John.
The 3 hours they do it, but you don't want to come out every
They
2
do it.
hours.
They do it downtown. They do it all the time. I mean,
But you haven't seen it with having a lot that you get 2 hours free and maybe you'll have to pay $4 or something.
Yeah, and again, if you're working down there, it's $1 a day. Yeah. So I mean, we're really not even talking about those who work there. We're talking about their patrons. And if they're going to be in the garage, even for a 2 hour period of time, it's going to cost them $2.
And the whole purpose of having limits and fines is to assure that the parking spaces turn over.
Well, that's what you would
Somebody
think, yeah.
doesn't come and just stay all day and keep other people from accessing the businesses. So there's this balance we need to achieve. 3 hours is quite a long time.
Just to address the downtown, I do think once we get to past a point of construction in Aggieville, we do need to address downtown, and we need to be consistent. And the first hour free on street makes a lot of sense, but after that, the reason I keep bringing this up, not only with Aggieville but with downtown, it's one of the lower end priorities for raising taxes. You're going to have a hard time convincing the 5 of you to raise property taxes to go down and fix parking lots and fix streets in those areas and take care of the amenities that people who park and work down there. We have a number of parking lots downtown. We haven't put a dime in for a long time. They're rough. There are Aggieville parking lots and streets that are really rough. It's hard to get that to be the priority. But if you generate revenue in those districts from people who are parking, we can put it right back into those lots. And that's essentially what we're planning to do in the garages. We have to start charging because it is so difficult to come back and strap that cost to the general taxpayer of this community. It's a user fee, and it's set up that way across the country, and you've all paid it when you've traveled. And that's essentially what we're trying to create is a revenue stream to put back into these districts to maintain the parking.
Does K-State have a hour free or half hour free in their garage?
No.
No,
Is it $2?
You take the ticket when you go in and you
Right.
pay when you leave and you pay for all of in between.
Right. Is it $2 an hour?
It's $2 an hour with a daily maximum of $16.
Okay. Thanks.
I wanted to ask about cleaning the garage. I don't know that we have that in place at the first parking garage, but twice a year. I can imagine that would be the first thing to go if the budget got tight. And I think it'll be important to keep it clean. You know, you see sometimes the same spots for a long time, so just advocating for cleaning. Okay. Are there any further comments? Does anyone wish to speak that has not? Hello, hi.
Hey. My name is Nancy Evangelides. I'm managing partner at Blue Stem Bistro, and I'm at 1219 Morrow there. There is a lot that needs to be said about what we've been talking about. There's inconsistencies in how it has been proposed, how it's been discussed, and I know that Jason keeps referring to the district and what we approved. I really don't remember voting on anything in our meeting. There's multiple board members here from the Aggieville Business Association here tonight. Consistency is also key. We've always said that. We went, just like what you said, John, earlier, you know, when it was initially brought to us, we didn't realize everything and how long everything would take with the Midtown development, with all of the construction. And we're not against change. I get it. I go to different towns. I pay for parking happily. I have the Park mobile app. Very slick. I like how it works. It's great. I get it. I know we need to produce revenue. I get all that good stuff. But for us to roll out this plan in just one district, to me, seems very strange, one. And two, to have it be inconsistent as far as the communication goes has been very difficult. It's almost whiplash at some times with what we've been told and what actually happens. And the fact that we're going to not implement parking or any type of parking regulation as far as cost between these districts, talk to anybody. If they're going to have to choose between going to downtown versus Aggieville, they're not going to come to Aggieville. Aggieville already has a black mark on it, which it shouldn't, because it's a great area. But you're basically now pushing them further. I mean, Radina's hasn't even opened since COVID because it's just been under construction. I don't know what else you need to see. Multiple businesses will fall under that. I don't have the profit margin on my cup of coffee that Starbucks does, and apparently they can just move their little, speaker so they can block traffic and nothing happens to them. But I guarantee if I did something like that, people would be on me. It's very unfair, the inconsistency that we have across the different businesses within Manhattan. Blue Stem Bistro has been there for a very long time, and I'm really hoping that we still are after all of this. We are excited about that Midtown project, but you culminate COVID, you culminate the increase in pricing, in labor, in everything else, and I just don't see small businesses like ours surviving something like this. You're talking how many years for us to have to sustain this? I'll park in the parking garage. All of my staff parks in the parking garage. I don't know how I, as a small business, am going to be able to afford paying for these folks as well. I mean, to ask my staff to pay for their own parking when they get paid, they're college students. They're not going to be thinking about parking, which means it falls on us. And I'm happy to do that, but I just don't see how we can. So I'd just like to have a better, more consistent plan. I feel like it needs to be implemented both places, not just in Aggieville. I don't want to be the guinea pig because you're going to hurt a lot of good businesses and you're going to lose them. Thank you.
Does anyone else, does anyone else wish to come forward to speak? Now's the time. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your comments this evening. Commission?
The problem is the parking solution in Aggieville is a moving target. And so we've gone from parallel parking on both sides to angle parking on one, parallel parking on the other one. We've done multiple things in an effort to improve things, and one solution creates a different problem, which then the next solution fixes, but creates a different problem. And so, yeah, we've had the best and brightest minds from Aggieville, the city, the planning department, everybody thinking on this for 20 years, and there's still no good answer other than we keep doing stuff, trying to tweak it, do stuff, trying to tweak it. And I just think we're gonna have to do this, and then, like I say, in 6 months or a year, we get some information, we find that it's not working worth a dang, then I am all in favor of coming up with the next new bright idea once anybody, 52% of the people can agree on that, which is what this thing is 51% of the people think it's a good idea, 49 don't. But we got to do something, because what we're doing now apparently isn't working based on what we're hearing. So I'll support it here, but I'm very open to better and brighter ideas once we know more.
I was going to say that I understand everything Jason said and how the plan developed and all of that. I understand the numbers now, they make sense. The other thing that does concern me, though, is, I mean, all that stuff going on in Aggieville is a definite challenge to the businesses that are down there. I don't know how much tweaking this thing helps or not. I'd be willing to tweak it. I mean, Wynn's 2 and 2 idea. I mean, I don't know if Aggieville has enough time to think about that to really give a response tonight. I was willing to go for the 2 hours free in the garage to make that the only change. As far as the budget, I don't want to hurt the budget. To me, if that was going to be an initiative, it would be an economic development initiative. And I know that's still money out of the kitty, but take it out of there for 1 year and see what happens. But I don't want the budget to suffer if we were to take an hour off of it. Open to all sorts of ideas, because they're really, I mean, no matter what decision we make, it can be second guessed and we're not going to know for sure. But I just am concerned with the amount of stuff going in Aggieville. I want to, try to do something to help them out as much as possible.
Yeah, I agree with that, John. I think you're right. Jason's got the point. We have to charge in the garage, and that's got to happen in January. And if we go with the 2 and 2 thing, it takes an hour off the street, adds an hour to the garage. It may hurt our budget, but then we'll have to dip into some other funds. Eco-Devo might be the way to do it, but you'd still have the data you need by then. And then we could adjust at that point. And that's sort of a compromise down the middle. It's not going to make everybody happy, but I think it at least gives us a consistency. And then I think long run, we are going to end up charging on the streets, and that may involve DMI too in the future, once all the construction's done. But I believe that's the way we should go.
Can I make a quick comment?
You're not able to.
Oh, no. Okay.
Sorry, thank you. My concern is there's going to be disruption for the next 5 years, let's say. And it's not going to get any better. It's just going to churn. And so we have to look at what will carry us through that period of time. I think Jason's proposal is the best financially, and I am concerned about the businesses, and I don't want to lose them, but I want us to be able to move forward. But I also don't want to be giving away, making deals on that parking garage when we need the revenue, and we need it for the city to operate it, and we need it to balance out what's happening on the street parking too. So I'm willing to support this resolution.
I think for at least 3 or 4 years, I remember us talking about the garage, and even the fee structure we've talked about for several years, especially the fee structure. We even discussed having it, there was a recommendation to have it free at night from 8 to midnight or whatever it might be, because those were the busiest hours. So I think, to me, the bottom line is to pay for the operational costs of the garage. We know it's in a TIF district, and we knew it wasn't going to pay for the entire thing. We knew it was only going to pay for partial infrastructure in Aggieville. But the Aggieville board did want a garage. That was one of the reasons we went with the Marriott, because we knew we were going to lose spaces. Part of that master plan was 3 garages. That was part of the plan. And I understand it's all happening at once, but I'm hoping there's still, Manhattan is still thriving. I'm hoping it's not just the parking that's going to keep people out of Aggieville. I still see a robust group of people always, anytime I'm down in Aggieville, I don't see empty restaurants or empty retail spaces. Or my husband still gets a haircut there. I know that parking is not the issue that keeps people out of Aggieville if they're staying out of it. There's so many events going on still that's keeping it thriving and people going there. And if people want to look for parking spaces, it's a matter of convenience. In most places, people walk 10 to 15 minutes to get anywhere. Here, we're just talking about a few minutes, and $2 an hour should be reasonable for most people to handle. Most places I've parked, it's been $10 or $15 or $20. We're still by far the cheapest, even at the airport or in Aggieville. I'm okay with going to 2.2 or keeping whatever we can, but I do believe we need to have a finance structure to take care of some of those budget concerns with the Aggieville garage.
Okay. We need a motion to be able to move on.
I'll make a motion, we adjust the parking garage hours to 2 hours free in the garage, 2 hours free in the street.
Commissioners, if I can, before you second, we could go ahead you have 2 separate actions here. The ordinance itself does not establish the rates, only the resolution does. Neither of them will go into effect until January 2nd of '23. We could adopt the ordinance for a separate motion. We can either, and then second, you can amend the resolution the way you'd like tonight, or we can bring that back, do the resolution, bring that back in a written form, because it won't go into effect till January 2nd regardless.
Okay, so the first one is just to pass.
Just stop before the approved resolution number. 110122B. If he reads the motion.
Yes.
Let's stop there and just do the 1.
Yes, correct. That will cover the ordinance. And the fees are in the resolution, part 2 of that motion.
I'll read it, John.
Okay.
I move that we approve ordinance number 7616, amending Chapter 31, Article 3, Division 5 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Manhattan, establishing regulations, parking fees, and penalties for violations of parking within Aggieville parking garage, and establishing the parking services manager's authority.
I'll second.
Could I get you to make, when you,
Okay, what we're doing is just.
I know, but when you read that ordinance number, you said 7616, and it's supposed to be 7615.
Oh, that's the one that was changed?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it has to be 15.
Make that
Does that make sense?
7615, I think. I didn't get, I didn't.
No, isn't 16 on the new one?
I think it's 16. I have 16.
Well, you got the old one?
Yes.
716 is the
It's
correct new
16.
one.
All right.
Okay, you have
16.
the old one.
I still have,
You got the mayor, so.
yeah, okay, 16.
What there, yeah.
Okay,
And
thanks.
we'll hold off on the resolution.
Yeah, okay, I'll go back here. Okay,
Somebody second it?
A second.
we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance number 7616. City Clerk, unless there's further discussion. Brenda, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Reddy,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Mayor Morse,
Yes,
Commissioner Hassel.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
okay. Now about the resolution, is there?
There's a couple options for you. So the resolution, if the guidance is to do the 2 hours on the street as well as in the parking garage, the 2 hours on the street is in an ordinance that we'll have to bring back to you for first and second reading, because that's a separate ordinance. We could bring the resolution back at that time, if you'd like, or you can make a motion tonight just to amend that part. I don't know if Jason has a recommendation based on your guys' packaging of this item, but we would have to do.
I was just looking over at Dennis to make sure he wanted 2 hours on street and in the parking lots, and he seems to be okay with that.
The question is this is just 8 to 5 on the street in Aggieville? You can, once you get there after business hours, you can
Correct.
stay all night?
It's just 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
We could bring it all back. We're gonna have to bring if the direction is to change the street parking, we're gonna have to bring that ordinance back.
We are.
And we do have time because this doesn't go into effect till January 2nd. So if that's okay with management, we could bring it all so you could see it together as a package. There you go. Okay.
Okay, so we'll.
That's fine, we're good with that.
We'll
And then the
delay.
Aggieville board can have a discussion.
And we'll delay that until when you bring it back. Okay, so we won't act on that this evening. Okay, so at this point,
We need to table it or just ignore it?
they'll bring it back, is what she said. Okay, the next item on the general agenda, thank you very much for coming this evening, is to consider the second amendment to Elsey Holdings, LLC, Economic Development Agreement.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Kristen Dolph is supposed to be with us this evening on Teams, but since Jared left, I'm over there messing things up, and I can't seem to get her in here. So I'll present these 2 slides. You obviously previously awarded a EcoDevo deal with the Elsey's in Prime Place. The initial agreement expected an investment in a new facility along Vanesta Drive. It was going to be their company headquarters. We incentivized, they had 13 new jobs. We incentivized those jobs at $5,000 per job, and it was over a 7-year period. They have shown us an average wage of just over $71,000, and they had to qualify, they needed to satisfy the terms for construction and be operational by July 31, 2024. We did 2 6-month extensions, recognizing they weren't making progress. Obviously, supply chains and budgets and all types of issues were occurring with them. So they have proposed an amendment. They have decided not to build a new facility. Instead, there is a existing facility at 2101 Vanesta Place. They would like to purchase and renovate that for their headquarters. The jobs basically stay the same. They do stay the same. So that incentive package would look the same. We'd still look at it over a 7-year period, 13 jobs, roughly $5,000 per job. We're looking at them becoming operational still by June of next year. The ROI really, and it's where we like to look out there is that cost-benefit analysis. This is about a $200,000 drop for the city, the county, and the school district. There's still a positive return back to each of them with this because of the jobs, but with a new building, it's usually a sizable property tax realization. This evening really is a matter of considering this amendment. I do believe they have representation here this evening. I don't believe Chris or Brian Elsey are here, but I do believe their council this evening is Mickey, who's in attendance, and could be able to speak to the change in plans and their relocation to another building. That's really all we have for you this evening from a staff presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
That one question on the return on investment, the cost-benefit analysis. You said there's a $200,000 difference between our original plan and this one?
Correct. The return to the city is about $200,000 less. So we're right around $250,000 in the original, and now we're down closer to $50,000. Those numbers are in the memo. I can pull them up here.
Right, and the amount that we're proposing to give to
$63,000. So we'll still net a positive 50.
Okay, so the full amount of this is 65,000 going to the,
Yes, that is the cost. The full benefit to the city is a positive number, even with that $60,000.
okay, see, and I asked that because maybe we shouldn't go with the same number since the return on investment is not the same.
Yeah.
That's my only concern.
If they originally was gonna buy a new build a new building, create $895,000 or so of a new building, what is, any ideas, I suppose maybe it's for the attorney to figure out, how much are they gonna put into this other building to increase the value of it, to generate more property taxes? That's one question. The other thing is if it's, if somebody was just gonna, if an established place wasn't gonna move, wasn't gonna change, they were just gonna hire 13 more people, would this, we would still be willing to give them the $65,000 based on 13 new jobs at $70,000 a year, whether or not they were thinking with a new building or different?
Yeah.
It's the question, do we have a precedent for that?
Correct. Well, probably not a precedent for this circumstance.
not for taking it away.
Right.
They had just originally come.
Yeah, the corporate headquarters and them relocating individuals from out of state to in-state is what's triggering the opportunity for incentives. So the state of Kansas recognizes what they're doing as well. They've maintained their participation in incentives. And when we looked at that, and I think Darren is here and he can speak from the chamber's perspective, but from Jason and Darren's perspective, they felt like the extension of incentives would qualify here as well. Darren can expand on that for you if you'd like, but when we checked with them multiple times throughout this process, they were well aware of what we had approved. They were well aware of where Prime Place was headed, and they felt like the extension of incentives was still justifiable.
So, is there already a headquarters here?
They have a presence in Manhattan. It is over off College. There's some apartments, and they do have a presence there, but this will be a new presence, and Mickey can expand on this, but there are workers in other states who are going to be relocating to Manhattan to the new facility. Those are the ones we're incentivizing to come to Manhattan.
So I read the economic development package that was developed, and I had a lot of questions. So you said something about the state. How much is the state putting into it? Because it doesn't seem like a huge deal that the state would want to put money into.
And that is something Mickey will have to expand upon.
Okay.
I don't have that information at the tip of my finger.
And the estimated cost-benefit analysis, it says with people moving in, 22 new residents, 16.7 million personal income, all of this is $279,000, and to me that equals about $2,400 something per year. Is that what?
That was
we're
the
talking-
original.
That was the original
for
one.
the city.
So
yeah.
now it
it's-
is
It's dropped down to, I think, upper 40s or around 50,000 for the city.
15,000 over a period of 20 years?
20 years, yes.
Okay, all right, I'll ask more to the other folks that might be presenting.
Any other questions for staff? Like I said, I know Darren and Mickey are here this evening to make some comments too.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Pardon? Sure. At this point, we'd like to hear from the applicant. If you, representative, if you'd come forward, please. And you have a PowerPoint too, right? No.
I do not, no.
Okay, we have a handout then. Okay, that's an old one? Oh, 21, I see it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my name is Mickey Zimmerman. I'm an employee for Elsey Holdings, have been for about 8 years. I'm here with Luke Schooler as well. He's head of our construction department there. Yeah, we've sent a letter, one of our owners, Brian, sent a letter to City Council a few weeks ago regarding this proposed amendment here. I don't know what all questions you might have. I may not know the answers right off the bat, but I'd be willing to field any questions you do have.
What were your questions earlier that Jason didn't answer but referred you to the applicant?
Yeah, so how much is the state putting in?
I don't have that figure with me here. I have to look that up. Sorry.
It's on next to the last page of the original PowerPoint that was
The
laying.
one that's dated
laying there.
2021.
It's 163,000 in their promoting employment across Kansas, 132,500 for their high performance incentive program, and there was 85,920 in sales tax exemption, but that would be related to construction, might apply to renovations or improvements as well, so that number's probably a little low, for a total of 381,485.
Maybe I'm looking at the wrong ones.
It's this on the front, yeah, the prime.
Okay,
company.
so total of high performance incentive program.
Total
This
of
is all for, yeah,
381,000.
for the renovations and moving to the new space. So I don't know, when we say the 13 employees that are being, you're not hiring new people, you're just moving them to Manhattan, right?
There'll be a combination of both there. We have strong projected growth over the next 2 or 3 years, so we're looking to hire new professionals. We've increased our Kansas wages in the past, from 2019 to 2021, almost doubled the Kansas wages, and we're projected to almost triple the gross portfolio that we have, the fair market value of that in the next 3 to 4 years. Most of that happening outside of the state of Kansas. We don't have any proposed Kansas projects at this point in time. So yeah, in the last maybe 2 years, we've went from a architectural staff of 2 to now we have 15 architects, engineers, interior designers as part of our design staff there. So we're just looking to continue to increase.
How many employees do you have in Manhattan now?
Full-time, I would estimate probably around 20 to 25, and probably 50 full-time company-wide. In fact, just this last week, we hired a guy from St. Joe, architect, and at the beginning of the year, he'll be moving to Manhattan. So that's just one example of.
Okay, so it's 50 total, your company, or?
I would
25
estimate probably 50 full-time and probably 50 part-time,
Okay.
and that's all throughout the U.S.
So the building that you're gonna, have you already purchased the 2101 Venesta?
Right, yep.
What was in that before, so I can get an idea where it is?
What's all in there? Is that
like the
there's Ed
fence?
Jones representative
Up there,
there?
closer behind the firehouse. Up there.
Right, yep. Is it Mathis Rehab? Is it?
How much are you expecting to put into that as you remodel it and make it?
I think was that 225, Luke? Yeah, 225,000.
Okay, all right.
But the state of Kansas commitment to you is still the same?
I believe so. That sounds right. I have not seen any amendments to that at all. Brian Elsey may know better than I do on that, but I have not heard of any changes to that
Not here.
incentive package.
And that's your understanding, Jason, is that state of Kansas is consistent?
Yeah, Darren, clear the air on this.
Sure, so our discussions with the state have been that they still qualify for the incentive package.
Okay.
To Ron's point, there are multiple programs there that are, the dollar amounts on those are impacted by capital investment, and granted, that capital investment takes multiple forms of by capital investment, jobs created, and those wages. And so the peak program with the state withholding wouldn't change. The high performance incentive program would likely be adapted some because the capital investment being made, but they still qualify for the program.
Okay, I just wanted to.
And those numbers have been submitted to the state. We've had a call with the state since the updated numbers have been submitted, and they've stated that the project qualifies. Those numbers, though, will change a little bit, and they have to be certified. So after that capital investment's made, the state certifies what that amount is and then defines the final benefit from those incentive programs.
So the 65,000 that the city would pay, at what point does that sort of kick in or get, do they get that? As if they hire 5 employees in 2023, then they'll get $20,000, you get another, and what kind of clawback, they got clawback provisions, I assume, if everything goes down the crapper?
Performance-based.
So this is a performance grant, so they don't get the money till they've produced the jobs.
Okay.
And it's expected to be over up to 7 years.
It will be 7. We've staggered it. Even if they showed up with 13 next year, we don't give them 65K. They'll get their 2 or 3 jobs out there for that 7-year period.
Okay, so, okay.
The only thing I would just add is, as they've indicated in the letter, they originally had planned to build the facility for about 1.4 million, and they've purchased the existing building for about 1.575 million. So they've already exceeded that amount. That was looking at, as they said, their estimated cost to build the structure was over 5. So that's really the change, is the issue of, we're instead of building new building that adds to the tax roll, the purchase price alone probably increases the value of the existing. If they're doing remodel, that's going to increase that value too. So it was really we were really incentivizing the jobs. The overall investment was important to look at our return on investment, which, again, ours reduced, but it is still positive.
One other question that maybe is germane, somebody asked me this. They bought a building that had existing businesses in it. Did we lose any jobs as a result of that? I mean, I don't know if anybody knows the answer to that, but there were people working in there. We're incentivizing bringing in jobs, but did we lose jobs because of the fact that that building's been purchased and those businesses have been displaced? I didn't know how to answer that. I don't know if anybody knows that answer.
I do not know that.
I just have one comment there. The building itself is split.
Why don't you give us your name?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's-
Yeah, my name is Luke Schooler.
Luke,
With Elsey Holdings. The building itself was split into, I think, 4 different areas.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's still, I think, 3 businesses that are still there. We're just taking one wing of the building. So not the whole property has been, and I'm not sure what happened with the offices that were there beforehand. I think they just relocated, but I couldn't tell you that 100%. So.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay. Are there any other questions then?
How did we get to the 50,000? I don't know why I'm missing that PowerPoint, but how did we get to the 50,000 return on investment?
It's that one with the brown bar on it, Yusha. under-
This one?
Yeah,
This is from 2021.
Oh.
That's the original.
yeah. And then there should have been another
There was
one.
about 3 pages that were part of the packet.
Oh, here's the, okay, 2021 one.
Okay.
And what that one doesn't show is what the original return on investment
Right.
was for. The original one was about 272,167 for the city. The new one is about 49,000. So it's there's a reduction of 223, and that's really those property tax estimates on that new facility.
Okay. So I was just thinking, sorry, go ahead.
And the city has all because we're given the incentive package, we have all that cost. There was pretty negligible effect on everybody else. The total impact with the state, county, and school district was $2 million, and that net benefit went down to 1.34, and that's million, and that's that property tax loss for those other property tax jurisdictions. State's incentives value didn't lose because they don't have any property tax.
So when we say property tax, are we talking about the land that they bought where they're going to put it? Because this looks like it's about the 13 individuals that are going to come here and probably buy a house here and probably invest here and things of that sort. So is that money from the actual facility that they're moving into, or that's the calculation of everybody that's moving here and buying houses?
It's a combination of all of that. Our return on investment formula plugs all of that data into it, and based on the jobs that they're, and the salaries they're paying, anticipates that a certain number will likely locate within the city based on all of those factors. So all of those factors are plugged into that return on investment formula.
Commissioner, we did not give them credit for property taxes on the existing building. Those were being paid prior. So we didn't give them credit in our return on, or our cost benefit
That
analysis.
really is why
That's why they've
return's
been
lower.
reduced,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
So is this would be money from the current Riley County's economic development sales tax, not the new City of Manhattan economic development tax?
Yeah.
And you've kept that money set aside since the original presentation, I assume, or something?
Yeah, the 02 money and the 12 money have been separate. We haven't started to receive the 23 money yet. Obviously, that'll start coming in January. Yep.
So on this return on investment, if I'm reading the numbers right, we're gonna invest $65,000 and our return's gonna be 50,000?
Net.
So we're gonna take a net loss of
No, no, no.
15,000?
65 plus the 50.
Yeah, your benefit's like 110, but your net benefit's 60, or 49, sorry.
Okay, just want to be clear on that.
Yep. The cost benefit analysis takes into account both. Because if it shows a positive, it means you're netting.
That's over
Positive.
20 years.
Correct.
The agreement says from June 2023 for a minimum of 10 years.
The agreements for that, they have a 7-year reporting period on their jobs, really a 7-year realization of their jobs, and we'll keep tracking them for 3 more years.
For 10 years, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much, appreciate. At this point, I would open the public comment period. Is anyone here that wishes to speak to this revised agreement? Seeing no one, I'll close the public comment period. Commission, is there action? Is there a
I just
motion?
want to say, yeah, if they had just come here for the first time and said, hey, we're going to bring 13 new jobs to pay $70,000 a year, and we want $65,000, if we can keep it that simple and just stick with that, I think we can all agree that that's not a bad deal. We had our hopes set higher originally with a bunch of property tax increases and stuff like that. So looking at it strictly as a bunch of, a dozen plus new jobs at $70,000, we got pretty excited when we were thinking we're getting 500 jobs at $70,000 a scorpion. In the meantime, we'll take 13, I guess, and so I'll go ahead and make a motion if I can, if anybody else has any comments. All right. Yeah, Mayor, I move that we authorize city administration to finalize and you and the city clerk to execute a second amendment to the economic development agreement with Elsey Holdings, LLC, d.b.a, the prime company.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is it further discussion?
Yes, I just wanted to say, I think this looks doable to me. I was hesitant at first, but because there is some state money going into it as well, and also the creation of the 13 jobs, I think we did, smaller businesses that created similar types of jobs. And there is a point where we start paying after certain things happen, as opposed to writing out a $65,000 check. So certain criteria need to be met as they receive the money. So I think because of that, I would be supporting this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's just a major change without the building, and I'm still skeptical that we might be losing 13 jobs by displacing people out of a building, so I'm not sold.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Butler?
No.
Commissioner Motta?
Yes.
Mayor Morse?
Yes.
Commissioner Hassel?
Yes.
Commissioner Reddy?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to discuss the possible draft additional questionnaire for the Riley County Law Board candidates, along with the appointment process the commission wants to utilize.
I'll start the discussion on this.
Okay.
You know, the commission will recall that as we were talking about changing some of our procedures and policies, there was a desire to have additional information on boards that had more than your typical advisory board. So specifically, the law board, the commission had talked about looking at additional questions for some of the applicants, as well as just the process itself, since it is a commission appointee, and that was one of the things that we certainly wanted to look. So I took a stab. I mean, there's been some different input of creating some questions, but, you know, I no pride of authorship there necessarily, but I've tried to incorporate some of the discussion that's occurred for background. It may be too detailed and should be more generic, so one, looking for feedback if you want to do that. First off, also let me just say that we've had a larger goal of improving our board sign-up process, and we have procured Granicus to assist us with that, as well as some of our other city clerk components, and so we've started that, and so trying to make it certainly more user-friendly for people to be able to attach something, create specific questionnaires for specific boards instead of one generic board. But in order to, if you want to utilize something for this for the appointments that expire at the end of the year, for the appointment of next year, that was kind of what I was suggesting, that we have an addendum to what we have online that we could send to people that have interest forms already in place, and then maybe a period for additional folks that might want to sign up, and then a process where you all reviewed, and as an example, and which we've used with some of the other boards, not necessarily with something like this, where you have some suggestions that you forward to the mayor for consideration, and still allow the mayor to make that recommendation ultimately that you all have to concur with. So that was.
I just wanted to make sure, because we've had this whole discussion on the boards, that for the law board, I mean, and I've gone through this before, on this one, the mayor can recommend, but it's a majority of the body, and we've had it where we've had mayors who didn't get what they wanted, and the other majority of the commission is selected.
You're speaking about the law board. The statute actually only says selected by the governing body. The statute itself does not mention the mayor. The commission previously, in 2006, had a policy manual resolution commissioner that did what you said, where essentially the mayor made a recommendation that was confirmed by the governing body. So they took that language by the governing body and created a process, and that resolution was repealed in 2014. So at this time, the statute is the only thing we have adopted specific to the law board, and it just says selected by the governing body.
So, okay.
Okay. How should we proceed? Have you reviewed the city manager's recommendation or proposal for?
I mean, obviously open to anything, but I thought he did a pretty good job on what he came up with. I would say on that first one, where it said public sector operating budget, or I'd say the same for large-scale private sector operation, or relevant experience, just so someone doesn't feel like they're trapped by that one part of it, because that's part of what I really value, is someone who's really managed a large-scale budget, has had to go through it. I think someone who served on a board is one thing. Obviously, someone like Ron Fair, who's literally managed it, I consider that much more valuable experience than, say, someone who just served on a board and approved it. So I really look at that in totality there. So I would just to make it clear to people, to give their relevant experience with that, even though, or add in the thing about both private sector or relevant experience to do it. And I think the rest of these actually look pretty good, but like I said, open to other ideas.
I want to eliminate the multi-million-dollar reference.
I think that's important.
I think our citizens should have opportunities to serve on.
Oh, it doesn't mean you have to have
I
done
know,
it, but
if we ask them to describe your knowledge and experience in overseeing a public or private sector operating budget, that should be sufficient without the multi-million-dollar value on it.
yeah, I guess you can take it out, but obviously that'll be something I'd be looking for.
Because the city commissioners, there's only probably one city commissioner that has that experience.
I don't have a problem with taking
you
that
know.
money out, but people can still add it. If
Yep.
they did
Right,
manage a
yeah.
huge
They
budget, they
can
can say,
add
hey, I
the
managed a
descriptor.
$1 zillion
Right.
budget.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate that.
That's fine.
I think one of the things that CEJ, the Coalition of Equal Justice, when they proposed appointment questions, one of the things they said we do is put a job description for law board applicants. And I think it's very important to put what they do, they look at a budget, they review a budget, and all of these things that are their responsibilities. So when people sign up for it, they understand exactly what it is they will be doing. And there should be appoint, evaluate, supervise, establish salary for the director, dismissal of law enforcement officers, personnel authorized plan. So these are some things that can be bullet pointed, so when they do their application form, they understand these are their responsibilities and what we're looking for. And I think having that question about some kind of a budget overview, because as a city commissioner, that was my first experience with $1 million budgets. As a public school teacher, we managed a few budgets, and as a mom, I suppose you can consider a household budget. But at this sector, everything is a learning experience, and what you're hoping to get is people that will work hard, do their due diligence, do their homework, come prepared, and ask a lot of questions. So I think that one about the budget is essential, and it should be bullet pointed up in front when they fill out that application form. I think as far as experience and everything related only to law enforcement, we need to tailor that to something, what experience or role do you have in supervising other people or in directing other people? And we can put what is your background in law enforcement, or what is your interest about being on law enforcement as far as RCPD. And some of the questions they had were on their application form to have a job description, key responsibilities, a time commitment. So what time? We have to make sure they know there is a huge time commitment to this. Demonstrated abilities and experiences, what kind of tough decisions that they had to make, collaboration, respect, and what are your preferred qualifications? I suppose that's something we can put in there, such as experience with oversight, budget and people relations and such. The questions, I just want to make sure that we are being more inclusive as opposed to just getting people that have been in corporate business. Describe any policy issues related to law enforcement you would like to see reviewed, explored by the law board, and your reasoning. I'm not sure a lot of people know all the policies involved in law board. For example, when we come onto the city commission, the vast amount of things we discuss are rarely the things we thought we would be discussing when we signed up to be city commissioners. So I think that needs to be related to what kind of policy decision-making experience do you have, policies and such, I suppose. As a potential City of Manhattan appointee representative to law board, describe what you believe your role is on law board and should be specific to interaction with city governments. I think that's reasonable. They need to know about our departments and residents and visitors. What do you believe are major challenges and priorities for RCPD? And I think we need to be cautious in that, because a lot of people don't know RCPD in a holistic manner. There's so many things. For example, we talked about correctional hires, dispatch hires, jail, medical insurance, assaults, and all of these things. What do you believe are major challenges and priorities for RCPD? We might want to rewrite that to say something as, what would you consider to be challenges in our community or priorities that RCPD should be addressing, or are they addressing? So I'd like to just tweak those so that more people would want to be a part of law board and have that comprehensive view of what to expect when they come onto law board and not be shocked by what they're doing, like hiring the director. you know, we.
That
we
wasn't
don't-
anticipated.
That's not, but we just never know, you know, we just
That's
never know
right.
what's going to happen. So those are some thoughts here all over the place, I suppose.
Yeah, but I think what we got there is good. You know, we've changed that thing, as Mayor Morris pointed out, maybe the money, but I don't have a problem. They're specific. My mind is, if you're gonna go for the law board, do your homework and figure out what the hell you're signing up for, and you should be able to write, you know, like policy. Maybe somebody's got an agenda, you know? Like, if I was applying for the law board as a citizen, I might say, hey, my agenda is, I think the law board should put, speed cameras in school zones, which I've talked about for years. But it gives, it gives people the idea, because you want to know if somebody's got an agenda.
Absolutely.
And I understand they may not know all the policies in there.
That's where it would fall.
But that's gotta be, that's gotta be laid out. So I think it's fine. And I want to see us move ahead. Like I said, each one of these boards needs to have a specific set of questions instead of that generic thing we've got now. And so this is a step forward. And as far as the process goes, recommending, sending a list to the mayor, yep, what I'll do is send a complete list of 4 names of who I think should be on the board, but based on who applies and the commissioners that are available. And then the mayor can make a recommendation, and then the night of the meeting, we can hash it out. And if we don't like the recommendation, we have the ability to change it, which has happened in the past. So I don't have a problem with it. It's a leap forward, and we should go with it.
Yeah, I don't mind the recommendation format that's been laid out by Ron. I think that's doable. But I do think some of these questions need to be such that they're more broad, so that we have more people wanting to be a part of it. Because all of the law board members we've had, I can't think, quote unquote, a bad law board member. It takes 7 people for anything to pass. And if you have a quorum or a majority that vote on it, that's how things move forward. But I can't imagine, I have never experienced a bad law board member. There's thorough discussion. I think they do a good job in evaluating everything that's there. And anybody who has an agenda also brings that forward, and you have that discussion. Do we want cameras? We've had plenty of discussions of such. And if that's what the law board at that point chooses, maybe it's that time for something like that at that point in time. But I think, like I said, good representation so far.
I'll just reiterate, I'm comfortable with how what we have here, agree with the mayor to take out the $1 million reference, and then just go from there.
I do, I appreciate that, because I want regular citizens to be able to apply, and not just CEOs or COOs or whatever. We have the statute, keeping with the statute, says citizens. And so there's an implication there that we call upon our people to come forward and assist in managing and working with. And I don't expect a former police officer or commander or captain or chief to be front and center on law board appointments, because they've been in law enforcement. I think that this is more commission, city commission and citizen. If you have law enforcement experience, that may be a benefit, but it's not, can't be the sole criteria. So
So what's the plan for city commissioners getting on the law board, and are we gonna try to get commissioners on there so that we can watch the budget closer? Or are we just gonna appoint 1 or 2 and then bitch and moan when the budget comes back too high, and then blame the law board for not doing their job?
Well, in my mind, we've got 4 appointments this year, so 2 commissioners go on there, and we pick 2 citizens, and you should be able to pick 4 people that understand the budget. It shouldn't be a problem. Now, the problem has been in the past, we haven't done that. In fact, last time we appointed law board members, if you look at the minutes, I mentioned that I was voting against a particular individual on the law board now because of budget. and every year voted to approve the budget and didn't look at it. And so I think, we didn't do our due diligence on the appointments. When we get folks coming here that say we should always put commissioners there, it's not gonna make any difference. Commissioners vote for the higher budget too. They've done that consistently when they're on the law board. So basically, it's the slate you put there, and if the priority is budget, then let's put some budget-minded individuals on there, and that's what I intend to recommend this year.
I also want to be clear, the people who do the budget on law board, they've had plenty of discussions. As far as the appointees, at least that I put on, as far as B. Stoney or Pat Hudgens, they review budgets regularly at K-State. So to assume that Bob Ward probably reviewed plenty of budgets when he was, Craig Beardsley probably reviewed tons of budgets. So to assume that we are putting people there that don't know anything about budgets, at least in the current appointments, I think might be a huge generalization.
No, I'm not saying they don't know anything about budgets. I'm saying I know how they vote. I know how they vote, and my opposition to that one appointment a couple of years ago was based on the votes, because that wasn't the first time that person had been on the board. And the same thing with Mr. Ward. Those guys vote for higher budgets. They understand budgets, and they believe we should have higher budgets, just like some of you do. But I'm in opposition to that. That's my point.
Right, but so did Commissioner Dodson, so did Craig Beardsley. Most of those budgets were well reviewed and discussed. So I won't continue beating on that one.
Okay, the discussion this evening has been valuable. It's been weighted heavily toward, anyway, I'd like to make sure that our citizens, that we know that we trust them and we value their contributions on boards. So are we able to have public comments at this point?
Yes.
Okay, if you've finished your discussion down there. Okay, hello.
Hi.
Yeah, hi.
I am Rebecca Gould, 2604 South Brookglen Circle, and here on behalf of CEJ. We are very appreciative that you all are looking into this and updating some of the questions. As was mentioned, it's such a large amount of money. We would also like to ask that you look at some of the other asks that were on that initial paper that was sent, and if you need it again, I can re-email that. So we were looking to have, I know that the city and county applications were on two different websites, and it was two different forms that they had to fill out. We just wanted that streamlined, if it could be one application that was the same thing. And then Commissioner Reddy mentioned, if the application could have job description, key responsibilities, et cetera. And then we had also asked that on the website, there is a list of current members with current and next term dates, so that the public knows when they can apply for the next law board application. And then application open and close dates, dates for application review, and then a tentative date span for when that decision would be made. And then we had a couple of people that had applied for the law board but never received a response. And hopefully the new system that you all are using will have some kind of auto response feature, but just asking that all applicants get some kind of response no matter which way it goes. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate you. I think you also had a desire for more open interviews of applicants. I don't think that's going to be part of our response. This isn't like a paid job. These are appointments to serve on a board, and I'm not sure we would get anyone to even apply if we had a gauntlet that they had to walk. So, that's my reaction.
Yeah, and I think
don't know if other members wish to speak also.
As long as the applicants get some kind of response back, I think that's more of what we were looking for, is some people just never got anything, and so they weren't sure.
I think that's been how our system has been. The electronic system accepts them, but there's no response. And certainly if we're getting a new system, it could be an auto, thank you. Yeah. We received it. So I think that's very appropriate.
No, I think that's reasonable. I mean, we really should do
Absolutely.
that, or else.
If
they
we don't
know.
have that in the new system, that's not the system we want.
Thank you.
Thank you. What about some of, I'm not so sure that the city and the county can combine websites. I think that we are just so independent. We don't have the same systems. Yeah, and the same processes. That's the combining.
Yeah, it would take a
web-
joint meeting to come up and to agree to all the questions, agree with all, yeah, I don't think that's feasible.
But
Yeah, and they didn't express any interest in doing this as a joint deal.
But I do think that on the city's website, when you call up a board, any board, it gives what the description of what the board does, and over at the side, it gives all of the current members and what their terms are. So I think that's already there, at least in my mind. And that's the public side. The commissioners and the staff see a backside of who has applied, but that's not presented publicly.
Mayor, I was going to say, I think, so when I went on the Riley County website, they didn't have their new form up yet. They still have a generic one where you just sign in. And I think about 5 or 6 people in 2022 already applied to be on law board. So if we're going to tweak anything, they need to be updated and told that as well. And I don't know, Ron, we keep them on tap for 3 years, right? Their applications, or 2 years? Okay, so in 2021, I wrote down 3 names, maybe there were more.
How many?
So there's already a total of at least 8
years.
Eight people that already are in
the
line,
system.
if they're in.
Within
they're
the last 2
interested.
years.
Yeah, that
Okay.
are interested on being on, citizens.
Citizens, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the intent was to touch base with them and have them fill out the supplemental information, and then also have a period that we would announce additional time for folks to apply that wanted to be considered. And then they would fill out the form we have, plus this supplemental form, and make it so they could also send additional information as well.
Could you, by chance, because we are in November already, and Mayor Morris makes the appointments and we have to give recommendations, like Rebecca pointed out, what would be the end date for those applications for community members to put in?
I had suggested that they be due back by the 22nd of November, and then we would distribute them to commissioners or make them available for you to view, and then between there and you would get your recommendations to the mayor or to the clerk by the 2nd, so that the mayor could appoint them at the December 20th meeting, or recommend.
We better send that out pretty quick, man.
I was hoping there weren't going to be a lot of changes. I think you've given me some good feedback, and we're planning to again, we don't have all of the holes plugged in the old system, but I felt like this would just be an easier way and a quick way to be.
Still
able
an
to
improvement.
It has to be effective, and we just have to be able to deliver on this. So I appreciate you making the accommodation to do that. When do you envision this new system being useful?
We are still in the early stages. We've just met with the
Vendor?
the representative, so there's things that we have to work through, pulling data from the old system to get to the new system. So there's things that we're working on.
And inputting data?
Inputting data.
So when will Mark be able to benefit from it as mayor?
We don't have an end date, so
Okay.
it depends on staff time, and they have other cities that they're working with also, so. But there's no set end date, so. We're trying to do it as quickly as possible. It's one of their easier processes, but it's a lot of work on our part too.
On your
so.
end. Keep us.
And in the meantime,
Keep us
we
updated
may be able to
quarterly,
do
please.
supplemental components for positions
Yeah.
that come along, so at least people can, attach additional information, that type of thing.
And if you could take this draft you put and make it into bullet points.
Yeah.
People find it easier to read bullets. So if you have 5 or 6 bullets about
Paragraph form.
the job description and what's required of law board members and responsibilities, I think it would be easier on the eyes as they fill out that.
I think it might be helpful too to add the statute there somewhere. So,
Okay.
I mean, just if that's all you saw was this.
Sure.
Then that statute controls so much.
Yeah, just put a link to it or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
One of the things I had suggested that we might consider is an orientation for the law board members. That's something we don't do. They don't hear the commission's perspective. That could be interesting, just because there is mixed opinion.
For our appointees.
Yeah, for our appointees.
As long as they don't pull out at that orientation.
But at least, one of the things that I think from an administrative side, we could do one that just here's some of our challenges, and here's how our budget process works. Here's how your budget process is likely to work. That could change, obviously, but the timelines are different. And that was part of why I brought up the discussion about, that with the changes with our timelines, that would be a potential statutory change for letting their timeline adjust also, because now it's even way earlier than when we are in the middle of ours for comparative purposes. But I understand your reluctance to open the statute, so appreciate that.
I appreciate your suggestion also that there be an orientation, and I fully support that. When I was first appointed to the law board, there was nothing. I just got copies of the statute. I came to the meeting with no background whatsoever. And of course, it's incumbent on the leaders of the law board at the time, and that just wasn't there at the time, I think. And so it's going to be a fast need, because the law board, all of the law board appointments expire December 31st, and new county and new city appointees. So they come to a meeting in January, and I would think before February, you would want an orientation, if the county's going to do theirs or the city, and we can't say the county is, but certainly if we wanted one, it would need to be pulled together quickly. And there probably needs to be an orientation for the law board itself in some way, by the leadership of the law board as it's reconstituted. And I think we're coming up with some ideas for how to make a more effective law board. And so I think beyond just the dollar amount, there needs to be some process or policies that, and even if they're not rigid, that the law board needs to pull together some recommendations for operation, how they operate, because the law board typically doesn't have those, to my knowledge. We have a statute for, that's all we use. And so I think it'd be a good idea for those of us who end up on the law board, it would be incumbent to do those things. Okay. So do we need, that was just more discussion? All right. Are we ready to adjourn?
I've got one miscellaneous item for you. You probably got an email from an individual about noise ordinance.
Yes.
I believe I've taken care of that person's concerns, so, I mean, you feel free to go ahead and respond, but I think I've got them taken care of.
Okay.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I found all the.
We have a great thing on the
ordinances
noise ordinance on the website.
And gave him the links, because he just couldn't find them, and he sent me back a note saying thanks, so I think it is resolved. So I'll move to adjourn the November 1st, 2022 City Commission meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Discussion? Seeing none. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Mayor Morse,
Yes?
Commissioner Hattasol,
Yes?
Commissioner Reddy,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for coming. The three of you that are still here, thank you.